But it's this, I can't even remember who she is. Crazy monster holding the eels. Mother Mary with a, not a lemming head, but what is that dude? I think he's a mongoose. I just thought it was fitting.
Prairie dog.
And then it's the happy and sad tree. But yeah, that sums them all up.
It says that it has a haunting spiritual quality. Songs like Cut Corners, Tell Her What I Said, Whispering Circles, and the quiet one. Ghosts of regret and lost love reverberate softly between the vocals and guitars, or drift like whispers that echo in your mind. And that's not, well, that's company hype. That's not, that's on the record.
The quote that you just read from was by Mike Stax, who is pretty much the definitive source of ultra-obscure 60s garage bands and stuff like that. His magazine Ugly Things is the Bible for that sort of thing. So to have him describe us in such familiar and both inviting and flattering terms was great for us to put forth.
Yeah. I don't want to risk, using one word, but there's a timelessness, obviously, about the group. And it feels like, to me, you guys seem to be able to sort of skirt and ride the edges of history and sort of shapeshift.
I don't know, personally for me, there's certainly times where I hear elements of bands that I've known in the past where I wouldn't say somebody's trying to sound like that, but you'll hear a little piece of something that reminds you of something that you heard in another song, and then, at least with me, can try to take something from that band and put it into our own song, but I can never successfully do that. It just comes out sounding like me. So
yeah,
I mean,
sure. It's like on this record we were compared to Link Ray and Morricone, which is clearly because of the last song. Some of our instrumental music sort of goes in a direction that is comparable to that genre. That's a pretty huge compliment to get compared to two of my favorite composers like that. But having said that, it's a style of instrumental music that's kind of dictated by the instrumentation and the sounds. If you have fuzz guitar and upright bass on a rolling drum sound, it's going to sort of remind you of maybe something that you heard on a soundtrack as opposed to on pop radio.
Yeah,
so we embrace that.
It shows, in the the timelessness. Obviously, I always thought you guys should. It sounds like music. I was going to ask you sort of basically how important is music to your music, but the music of others. Because some bands sort of absorb it, and some bands like to stay away from it.
Well, it was more important earlier, I think, and then as we went along, we kind of, as it rolled along, we just got our own sound, and even if we tried to sound like something else, it just sounded like he said. It just sounds like us.
Even if we do a cover, it ends up sounding like the Sadies. Even though I guess we're not great mimics.
You can only steal so much until your pockets are full.
You should hear us cover the hit. It sounds just like the Sadies.
Well, and into that end, Gary Louris, we should shift gears to talking about him. How's he? What's his approach to preparing and getting this in the shoot?
He and I have always had very similar taste in certain psychedelic bands, pretty obscure stuff, and it totally, like said bands, like our mutual enthusiasm for certain weird bands kind of led us to agree that doing a session for New Seasons is kind of a no harm, no foul sort of thing. We'd go out to Spain, do a session, and if it didn't work, then at least it would be a fun little boys club, and we'd be in Spain. But the chemistry was there immediately. His strengths and ours are totally opposite, and it's so important for us because he brings a whole confidence to stuff that we never put that much emphasis on, namely melody, lyrics, the most important thing, harmonies. So he's a great guitar player too. So essentially, he taught us so much on the first recording with him that we were able to take that away with us and you know, kind of apply a lot of the writing tricks that he taught us before we even did the pre-writing. So this record has been a lot more Gary Louris infused than it felt when we were actually in the studio, because he doesn't even have to be there anymore. We know what he's gonna say.
Talking about songwriting, obviously. I mean, Gary Louris, a real songwriter. You guys are songwriters. You write as a group. How do you guys write? How do you get together?
There's no real formula to how we come up with songs, but you know, it starts with the individual, I imagine. You know, and just come together. And some people say, "There's no way I can do that," or "Why don't you try this?" And bring them all together.
I'm just interested in taking a song and just, you know, making a cross section for the people that are interested in process. Postcards.
Well, that one started, that started with a phone call from Greg Keeler. And he said, I said, "I'm having a hell of a time writing lyrics. It's driving me nuts." And he said, "I read that, what I like to do, there's a trick from Leonard Cohen, and he would write letters to himself, or write letters to dead people, or whatever.
Address it.
And and just don't send them." And he said, "That's what I like to do." And he goes, "Sometimes that'll inspire a song, sometimes that'll, like a line in it, or, you know, just whatever." So that's what started that song.
I think it's really sly, the song, because it's saying, basically states the premise, wasting my time is the worst thing you can do to me. Is that what it is, essentially? Wasting my time is
Yeah, that line is
the worst thing you could do to me.
Yeah.
And then you proceed to describe all the different ways in which you waste time. You know, writing, saying things no one believes, doing things no one needs.
That's the story, man.
Writing postcards that no one reads. It's brilliant.
One thing I did that's different sort of for writing for this one is a different sort of approach is that it used to be that everything I'd write, I wrote it originally thinking of it as an instrumental song. And if it did cut it as an instrumental, then maybe add some lyrics. But now I write a song thinking that it will be sung. The song will be sung one day.
Yeah. And none of you guys are mentioning the big white elephant in the room, which is the lyrics. When you talk about writer's block, I mean, you can overcome a writer's block in any number of ways, but lyrically, how do you do it? I mean, talking about making instrumentals, but now you're writing lyrics. There's no demand for this stuff.
Well, I haven't figured this out yet.
Oh, you're tinking the glass. Ting, ting, ting. Excuse me, everyone. I have something I want to say.
Yeah.
And then you have to say it, and there comes the block where, what do you do now? For instance, a tip that, you know, if you're having writer's block, you just don't know what to say next. Rather than going to a mystical solution, you go to a practical one, which is you take out the best line, the line you think is the best. Can't be, this is a cool line, this stays, everything else goes. But if you pull that out, sometimes that can, you know, the thing that you hold most dear, you know, you can sort of pick the jam and the song starts to flow again. Do you guys have a trick? Do you have a trick like that?
Well, the way there's no smoke and mirrors in my tunes.
There is, there's tons of it.
I'm just kidding. You know, for me, I don't sit down and go, fuck, I've got like 2 days until this song has to be on the table. What am I gonna do? And sit there scratching my head going, what rhymes with love? You know, it's not part of my makeup. I don't do it. And so what I do is I write down things that I consider sort of important to me or profound at the time. There's never a meter, there's never a rhyme. And then down the road, I'll have a big pile of these little things, and then from there, the process of making a song, you know, this is things that I consider profound, so the theme is going to be the same. The first 5 songs, there's one theme. I then can create a song almost like a crossword puzzle, and it's really fun. You know, I have a collection of thoughts that are all connected, and sure, they don't rhyme. And the problem, of course, is once I start trying to make them rhyme, the sentiment changes as you rearrange the sentence structure. And then, you know, then it's lost or ruined, and then, you know, you've lost lines that were very important a second ago. But what you end up with is plenty, and I suppose that because we were able to do a record of all country and western covers with John Doe last year, we had an even larger window to work on things like poetry, quite literally. And I mean, I will definitely knock on wood when I say this, but Sadies don't really hit musical stumbling blocks. Like, we're not like, I guess we're just really into ourselves or something, because we can always play songs that we can shape up and go, you know, but the hard part is the melody, always. When we started though, we definitely found our strengths to be instrumental music and old-time country and western. They're the things that we gravitated towards and clearly felt we could do well. And so that's what we did. And the truth is, a lot of the instrumental music that we gravitated towards was very much geared towards a live audience. Like, they'd be kind of fun songs, fast, whatever, you know. And as we evolve as songwriters and human beings and stuff, there's not always a place for humor, you know, on all records and so on. And and we've also been faced with different projects that have kind of expunged certain styles of the music that we play. Like, you know, I mentioned the country and western covers record we did recently. We also did the soundtrack for Ron Mann's Radfig film, which pretty much purged all the sort of hot rod music that we would be capable of submitting for the next 10 to 15 years. So on, so on. And so I guess essentially as we've, you know, been spitting out material and, you know, progressing or digressing as a band, our sound has changed accordingly just because of the projects that we've accepted and declined. And so now we're no longer doing what we deemed as our ultimate strengths, which is, you know, instrumentals and country and western, but we are definitely going more in a direction of the music that we love. And there's a hybrid between country and western, the instrumental music of the 60s rock and roll music, punk rock, all of these things. And those are all, those details are things that have really drawn us to music in general. It's why we play guitar. Why we write songs.